Hey, welcome to day 11 of the at-home workouts during the COVID-19 crisis. It is the last day of March. There are no more days of March, which means March, which has been the longest month ever, is coming to a close. It has to end. That's how calendars work. So tomorrow will be April 1st. We'll have a whole new month. It's very exciting. Today is going to be my last at-home workout before one-day break because Kevin and I are going to be driving back home to Pattaya, and then I'm hoping to be able to continue these in Pattaya where my apartment is much smaller, but I'll find other things kind of around that I can still continue my at-home workouts because we will be continuing our social distancing when we get home to Pattaya as well. So I mentioned yesterday at the very end of my workout that it was awesome to see so many of these names of crews and legends who I've trained with and who are in the Muay Thai Library coming onto my live feed, but that it was a little bit intimidating because I'm doing the things that they taught me. And so when your teacher's looking and you're kind of like, am I doing it right? When they're watching my live stream, it's a little bit like, oh, that's amazing that Dieselnoy and Ramba and Chai are watching me. But then you're also like, I totally know that I'm not doing this completely correctly, or I'm trying to remember the exact thing. And they're very forgiving as trainers, understanding that it's a process of learning and you have to have a feeling and things like this. But I feel really good that they're checking in on my live streams, actually. But then last night, before I went to sleep, Dieselnoy messaged me and told me that I'm not going hardcore enough in my at-home workouts. And I was like, I know he's not watching the whole thing. I know he doesn't understand me when I speak English and I'm talking about how sore my legs are, which is why I can't go really high or really fast on my knees. But it was pretty funny to have like this, this kind of like back burner fear completely realized by the most hardcore man I've ever met. I think there are two ways to look at this. One is that I am utterly flattered that Dieselnoy is even watching it all and that he loves me and cares enough to tell me that I need to be doing it harder. And the other way to look at it is that, yeah, like you can actually never go hard enough for Dieselnoy. Like I could tear this wall down with my knees and he'd be like, yeah, but you could have kind of done it better. Okay, I understand. So if you're at home and working out at home and you kind of have to pull things down because of what your conditions are in terms of what you have access to, how you're feeling, because we're all on our asses like all day, it is important to understand what your capacities are in the situation that we're in, but it's also really important to keep pushing. When I'm at the gym, I don't really want to be coasting. I always want to be pushing myself really hard and like improving every day. So I want to be doing that when I'm at home too. So I take Dieselnoy's words to heart, even though it's really hard to get the kind of energy in the knees and the height in the knees that he taught me. He taught them to me in the corner of the ring, and doing it against the wall is a stand-in for that situation. Actually, there's nothing to grip, so it's a little bit harder. But I also totally acknowledge, and I need to be honest with myself, have been pulling these down because of how sore I am and because of how difficult it is for me to go from training 4 to 6 hours a day to training like 40 minutes a day. Take things that are true and learn from them what you can, I guess, is what that speech is about. So if you guys are joining me and have been joining me for the past 11 days, 10 days, I'm going to be doing kind of more of the same, but I'm going to try to like put a little kick into it for Dieselnoy. There's not a lot of variety that I can put into what I'm doing, but I'm also purposefully not doing something different every day, like leg day, chest day, let's do yoga today, this kind of thing, because I think that the methods that I've chosen are tried and true in that the repetition of them and the basic elements of them build a foundation around which everything else that I do when I get back to the gym and have more variety at my disposal, I have worked on the bases. So like work on the basics, work on the things that are like completely foundational. And then when you can go do more of the like interesting things like that, you've got a stronger foundation. So I'm basically working on my grammar. And then when I get back to the gym, I can kind of have more conversations, but I will have worked on my basics for that. Hey, Pim. Pim is watching. Pim's in Bangkok. Maria, yeah, what year is it? It's like the original Terminator with like all of these people going through time and trying to figure stuff out. Like it's one of these things that I keep seeing these articles that are like, so-and-so predicted this pandemic. And it's like, yeah, they predicted there was an upcoming pandemic because we don't fund research and vaccinations and things like this. So while we can be all like amazed that they predicted this one and we didn't see it coming, they're predicting all of the ones that will come after this as well. This is not the last one. So again, learn the skills and what we can do here, gather all the information here so that we're better for it next time. It's the same thing as training, honestly. Someone asked me about where your hands go, and I've been talking about Yod Khun Pan and where his hands go when he's doing his crazy, endless shadowboxing. Kevin showed me the slow motion video that he made of Yod Khun Pan. It's a beautiful video of Yod Khun Pan doing his slow motion. Well, he's doing them at regular speed. We made a slow motion video out of it, but you can see how loose areas of his form are in order to give the exact precise speed and power to the areas that he wants it. But his hand kind of comes up to his opposite cheek.
Your mic is folded under.
It was under in the first place. It's clipped to be under.
Yeah, cannot hear you.
Oh, okay. We're trying out a new thing with the clipped microphone. So Kevin is my sound guy. So Yod Khun Pan's hand often comes up to his opposite cheek like this. He is like so relaxed when he's going like this. In order for the hand to come up to the side of the cheek, there's got to be a gap in his guard. So if your guard is like this, you're not going to be able to shove that in there. So once you start kind of like relaxing, I guess, your arms a little bit, you can find where your hands are going to be finding them. But if you go watch that slow motion video of Yod Khun Pan, you can see where his hands go and borrow from that. So I'm clipping and unclipping that a little bit for those knees. See if Diesel is yelling at me yet. No, not yet. this out to the other way we did the microphone because that's irritating me. So, I just changed to the corner instead of holding the wall because I have a corner. But if you guys have ever seen The Simpsons where Homer becomes morbidly obese so that he can work from home, and he discovers that instead of typing in yes for his nuclear reactor, if he just hits Y, it's the same as hitting yes. And so Marge comes in to say that he's not working very hard, and he says, for your information, I just tripled my productivity. That's me in my moo-moo. I just tripled my productivity doing the knees in the corner instead of against the wall, which is cool because there's room there. Shadowboxing.
doing a lot of like the same, I'm doing 500 elbows, 500 knees. I'm doing the same things, right? So because I'm not introducing a lot of variety, or because I'm not like changing everything up all the time, my shadowboxing between things is kind of my way to pull together and integrate the little details that I'm taking as like a self-diagnostic, as I'm throwing the elbows, as I'm throwing the knees. Because it's so repetitive, I can feel differences in a knee not being as high or an elbow not being as loose. And so I try to make micro diagnostics on why that might be. Like, it's not a problem that the knee isn't high enough. It's not like stop and figure out what was wrong with that. Try to make the next one higher. Like, be aware of why that's not the way I want it to be, or even that it's not the way I want it to be. And just try to make a correction on the next one. But even if you don't correct it on the next one, just keep going kind of thing. So I'm basically using the high repetition and the like boredom of doing the same thing over and over again in order to be able to feel more and more minute differences between each of those things. I was working with Hippie Singmani at his gym, Town and Town Gym in Bangkok years ago. There's a very funny video clip of he was teaching me how to kick the bag really hard, and I kicked the bag really hard and it fell. It was like Sylvie killed the bag, but I was really proud of myself because instead of panicking that I'd broken his equipment or something, I used it as a moment to respond as though I'd killed somebody. So I was like, that was a good moment for me. But something that Hippie made a big point about, and he is high repetition, but he's not mindless high repetition, right? Like, he doesn't want you to just bang out 50 kicks on the bag, not paying attention to which are good kicks and which are bad kicks. He had me go really slow. So he had me swing the heavy bag and work on the timing for when your kick is gonna go. And he's like, I want 50 good kicks. So that meant I had to take a bunch of time between each kick in order to make sure that I was like putting all my power into it, that my balance was right, all of these things. And if you're like, I'm gonna do 50 good kicks, that doesn't mean you're not gonna have bad kicks in there. There's gonna be this degree like this. But basically it was forcing me to pay attention to the qualities of the kick that I wanted. So while that's different from what I'm doing, which is when you make the mistake, just keep going, it's like high pace, high repetition. The way that Hippie had me do it is, in contrast to the actual practice of it being different, has the same values, which is that it's teaching you how to identify, that's a good kick, this is how I execute a really good kick. It's not obsessing over, like, you'll get these people who I won't name, who when they're like getting ready to kick on pads or something, there's this whole, you can actually see their brain going. There's this whole thing of like, okay, where does my foot go? How do I do this? How do I transfer my weight? How do I do all this thing in order to get the kick off? And it's gone. Like, everyone's gone home by the time you're like ready to throw your kick. So you use these two very opposing, in practice, like, they look very different. One is do 50 good kicks and the other one is do 500 kicks, and it doesn't matter whether they're good or bad, you just need to learn how to identify them as two things that are teaching you how to identify what is the kind of kick you want, what are the qualities of the kick you want. And you can do this for any of your techniques. And the idea is to take the thought out of it and put the feeling into it. So even though Hippies were slower, Hippie is like, do 50 hard kicks. Because you want those 50 hard kicks, you have to feel the difference between why that one had power and why this one didn't, rather than thinking, why did that one have power, why didn't it? You're gonna think it for a while, but it'll turn into feelings eventually. If anyone has ever learned a second language and gone with the like immersion way of doing it, for a long time, when you're first learning a new language, I learned German and then I learned Thai, so I've done this twice. For a while, you're still thinking in English and then translating it into your second language. So you have the thought in English, and then you think, how is that said in the other language? And then you kind of like transcribe it in your head. Eventually, because you've kept doing this and you start to like think in that language, you're no longer translating, you're just actually thinking in that language. That's what the feeling of knowing whether this is right or wrong is you spend the time doing the translation, which is the like, okay, why is my foot not where it's supposed to be? Why is the power not good? There's all these why questions. But the more you do it and the more you throw yourself into it and you can feel whether that was the right kick or the right elbow or whatever the thing is, the more you can feel it, the less translating in your head you're going to be doing. All right. Lysole asks, do you do footwork focused sessions? How do you understand Yang Sam Kun? I don't know what that is. Samar just started a home-based training course and mentioned Yang Sam Kun in lesson 1. Unless I had that written in Thai or heard someone say it, I don't know when it's written out. Speaking of translations, when it's just written out phonetically in English, I don't know what that might mean. When I was training with Samart for the Muay Thai Library session, which you can go watch, he made a huge deal about Yun Di. Yun Di is how you stand. Yun is to stand. Di is good. So it's basically stand well. So what Thais mean when they're yelling at you, Yun Di, is basically when you're off balance. It's kind of always having to do with balance and posture. So if you're throwing your knee like this and coming down like this, you're not standing correctly. They want you to stand in such a way that you can bang and like come right back down. If you watch my training session from, I think, 2 days ago, I worked exclusively on balance, and a lot of that had to do with Samart and what he had taught me in our library session, which is how you learn how to Yun Di is by doing things with a lot of symmetry and doing things slowly and focusing on the balance of them. So in that session, I did footwork specific training, which is basically just marching back and forth. But anytime you're doing something, whether it's on the bag, shadow, sparring, pad work, running, like anything, you want to, it's the same thing where you like feel where your balance is. You want to be like, all right, if I throw a knee like this, what does that feel like? If I put my foot closer to the middle and I throw the knee, no, now my balance is less, so now I want to step out this way. So like anytime you're moving around, even if you're not specifically working on your footwork, you want to be feeling where your feet are, feeling where your weight is literally on your foot. There are times that I can feel when I'm throwing something that my weight blows out to the outside blade of my foot. I can feel it. Like I can feel it because I have to make the correction when I come back down. And so it's like, how do I step so that my weight is more balanced on that foot? So yes, there are footwork specific things to do, which are literally just moving around. You don't even have to throw strikes. You can just think the strikes and like figure out where your thing is. But because when you're doing footwork specific exercises, what you should be paying attention to is where your balance is and where your weight is, you can take that same principle and plug it into literally anything you're doing. So pay attention to your weight and your balance, like your weight transfer and your balance in any given scenario. When you're walking to the bus, that's working on footwork. All right, back to it. Talking is really my cardio. I get out of breath talking. All right, I don't want to stop in the middle of doing something. I should continue that, but just now, because I'm throwing things like this, I actually closed my eyes and I feel my ring finger is fluttering. I have brothers. There's something called dead finger where you like loosen your hands and whip someone like that. It fucking hurts so bad. I have a hard time doing it. It's basically like a, what you do with a towel, the like tail towel thing. It's the same thing, but you're doing it with your fingers because they're loose. I'm feeling that with my ring finger when I'm throwing my elbows, which to me is really good because that means there's relaxation in my wrists and my hands. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about where I'm like, find feelings. It can be a bad feeling, like I hate the way my shoulder feels right now. You've identified a feeling, you've identified a location that you can kind of put some kind of concentration on and be like, loosen that up. Or it can be something you really like where you're like, man, my blocks are just coming up so fast today. Know that feeling because then you can figure out how to feel it again. It's basically learning how to know all the things that you're feeling instead of it just being like a big garbled mess of I don't really know what's happening. Sebastian, thank you so much, and may God keep you and your family safe. Thank you. You too, Sebastian, and everyone watching. What I was just talking about being able to feel something, whether it's good or whether it's bad, you'll know whether it's good or bad, but it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, it just matters that you noticed it. It just matters that you can like identify it. Just now, when I was doing my knees in the corner, I was thinking of a kind of like mundane way to explain it is, say, burritos. Burritos have a lot of ingredients in them, right? Depending on where you get them, depending on what the like menu is, they're gonna have tons of different ingredients put in them. There may be a flavor in the burrito that you do not like. Instead of being like, I don't like burritos, if you can identify what that flavor is that you don't like, you can be like, hey, no cilantro, or whatever the thing is, to like pull out the elements that you don't like rather than tossing the entire thing out. Meanwhile, there might be something that you really like that's an individual flavor within that burrito, and you're like, I love burritos. And then you go to a different truck and they don't use that ingredient, and you're like, what the fuck? I thought I liked burritos, this doesn't taste like that one. So there are a lot of elements that go into anything that you're doing. I was laughing with my friend Caro because any one training session at the gym, so much happens that when someone's like, how is your training? It's really hard to know what any of those things are. Your brain will automatically just pull out the strongest feeling you had. So if your like training was terrible, it might be because something that was literally 2 minutes long out of your 2-hour session made you feel frustrated, and so your like training was bad. Or given all the things that happened, your brain really liked something that you did in sparring, and so it's like, today was awesome, I finally got my right hand going. That's maybe 2 rounds out of an entire 2-hour session, and your brain is just like putting it all as one lump sum. So on days that you're shadowboxing and you don't feel really good, and you can't identify why you don't feel good, you're gonna say things like, I suck, or you're gonna say things like, I'm going backwards, or I'm not getting any better. Don't lump sum it. It's not, I don't like burritos, and it's not, I like burritos. You like or dislike something in it, and maybe something that you like is all the different complex flavors. So if you can identify that you like how something feels because something is loose, you like how something feels because you're on balance, you like how something feels because it has power to it. We like similar feelings regardless of how they're coming to us. The reason women are bodybuilders and the reason men are bodybuilders is because having muscle feels powerful, and people like feeling powerful. So if you like the way that you feel in any given day, and then you like how you feel on a different day and you're doing completely different things, there's probably a similar element, which is that you're on balance, you feel like the things that you're trying to do are coming easily, you're getting out of your own mind, and so it's kind of flowing. If you can identify those things, you can recreate them. So don't fall into the folly that many of us do of painting something with too wide of a brush. It's really, really valuable to be able to make micro adjustments and make mistakes in order to identify what the good and bad feelings are and what's causing them. Michelle, I really enjoyed the latest Muay Thai Bones, how you guys were explaining training, throwing punches from a realistic guard, like in a fight. Can you show that, please? Yes, I can, Michelle. So basically, due to, like I'm saying, many elements and influences, I was really too tense doing anything and everything in Muay Thai. A couple of years ago, I was just like, my trainers were like, sabai, relax, because I was just really tense. In order to get myself to relax a little bit, I was working on hands down, like just doing everything literally with my hands just kind of flopping like this. That was too hard for me, even though that was what I was supposed to be doing. And so I kind of came midway, right? So my hands were relaxed, but they actually weren't down, and they definitely weren't up. And I trained these really bad habits of basically keeping my hands like here all the time, and they're relaxed, that's cool. From a distance, that's cool. But when you get close enough for someone to punch you in the face, they need to come back up. The women I fight, people know who I am in Thailand. I'm not like where the hell did this girl come from? People know me. They kind of know how I fight. There's a little bit of a like legend of Sylvie. And I think that a lot of my opponents know that the way to beat me is to cut me, and so they try to cut me in fights, and so I'm aware of this. I don't want to get cut, and so I go into this like max guard. So I'm training like this, right? All my like punches are coming out like this, but then in a fight I'm actually like this. So nothing's coming out because I have not trained anything coming out of this position at all whatsoever. Same thing happens without us even realizing it. If you're on a bag, nobody's coming at you. You have no pressure on a bag. The bag doesn't hit you back. You might have a nice, relaxed, wide stance. You don't have any tension in your legs that you don't need, and you're just like ripping kicks. And then the second you get in front of someone who puts pressure on you, without you even realizing it, you might stand differently. You might stand kind of more like this, or you might kind of like ground your heels a little bit more because you're like bracing for the impact. And unless you can feel with a body map, hey, there's a difference between how I literally feel in front of a bag and the way I feel when I'm in front of a pad man or a sparring partner, and that's why my kicks aren't coming out. That's the same thing of like, I have not trained to punch out of here, but I'm in this position all the time because I'm trying to guard myself against elbows. So Kevin was saying that you have to focus on punching out of realistically how you're actually standing in fights. So while I would love to bring relaxation like this into the fight, that's not how I am. I'm like this. So I have to bring it into my training instead. I need to pull it this way. So I was learning how to punch out of the guard that I actually use in fights, which is this kind of max guard. So if I'm staying like this, right, I have to be punching from here rather than if I'm like here I'm punching, if I'm like here I'm guarding, and then I can't come out. So it's two positions versus one position that doesn't require so much like transitioning. So that's what the punching out of guard was, and that's what it looks like, is basically picture the position my body's in when I'm in max protect, and picture the emotional feeling I have when someone's coming at me with elbows and I go into max protect, so that not only am I firing out of the literal position that my arms are going to be in, but I need to be firing out of the emotional position and tension that my body is going to be in when I'm like, this fucking chick is trying to cut me and she's enormous and long, that kind of thing. Like put both the physical feeling and physical position and emotional feeling into it all together. All right. Elbows. All right, so here's talk more. Here's another thing, is that when I actually fight, like when I actually have someone in front of me, I stand actually quite bladed like this. I don't know why. I think that I'm like trying to keep this side far away or something, or like turn so that I'm a smaller target. I'm not sure. But something that Yokun Pan noticed when I was sparring with him is he's like, you cannot kick from this position. It's just too far away. It's the same reason I won't throw my right cross, is that I'm covering so much distance, there's never any time for me to get it there, especially because I'm not setting it up with anything. Same thing with this kick. I'm covering all this distance to throw that kick. Mentally, I'm just like, it's too far away. Like, it's not going to happen. So if I just shallow up my stance, I square it up a little bit, all of a sudden I'm kicking buckets. Like, I came and was sparring with Karahat when we first came to Chiang Mai. My right kick was just coming out like crazy. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't like, slowly kick, which is what I think when I'm like upset with myself and anything I tell myself to do will not happen. I wasn't thinking about it. It was just coming out, and it was because I had more of a square stance. So when I'm throwing these elbows, this is my actual stance, like when I'm fighting like this. So if I'm throwing elbows in my stance, it's like that. But Yokun Pan is like, bring it to square, throw your elbows like this. When I clinch, I'm actually more squared up, and I'm most comfortable clinching. In any fight, my most comfortable moments are in clinching. So I should actually probably adopt more of a square stance in everything, because this reminds me subconsciously of the comforts I have in kind of like ambidextrous movements in clinch, and elbows are from a clinching range, so it makes sense to square up. So they're totally the kinds of things I'm talking about like find the moments that feel good, and how do you like transplant that to moments that don't feel as good, like why? So changing your stance can have that effect as well. one more thing of shadowboxing. If you guys have any questions. Claire Cree says hi. Hi, Claire. Alessandro Torrisi. Sawadee. Alessandro comes to Petringham when he's able, and they have a gym, Naka Gym, in Padova, I think. But good luck in Italy right now, Alessandro. We're thinking about you guys, and I hope you're doing really, really well, given the circumstances, and staying home, staying safe. I'm sure your wife misses you very much. His wife is in Thailand. Hard time to be apart. Alright, so as I was saying when we started, today's day 11, so if you guys are just joining today, there are 10 more at-home workouts that you can go look at. They're both on YouTube and on my Facebook page, which you're watching this on now. I'm not a teacher and I'm not instructing on a home workout. I'm basically, like you just watched, I'm doing my own thing, and I think a lot in everything that I do when I'm training, and so I'm sharing with you my thoughts. A lot of those thoughts have to do with things that I've been taught or things that I've come upon in my, I think now like 12 years in Muay Thai. So these are just things that I think about. These are things that I've come to realize. These are things that I think are important. And they just kind of come to me as I'm doing my workout. So that's why there's this like blend of Sylvie doing things and then Sylvie yapping at you for extended periods of time and getting out of breath because of it. So if you want to go watch those, they're on YouTube and on my Facebook page, days 1 through 10. Today's day 11. Tomorrow, Kevin and I are driving back down to Pattaya. We're in Chiang Mai right now, so tomorrow will be a break. I will not be doing one of these videos tomorrow, but I should resume once we get to Pattaya. So if you haven't watched those previous videos, tomorrow you can do that because there won't be a new one. Also, if you have any questions, Michelle asked a really, really good question about punching out of your guard. Her question comes out of clearly following me and things that I've talked about in Muay Thai Bones or in my technique vlogs or anything like that. And so any question you might have, totally put it on, we have a forum, it's on 8limbsus.com, the Muay Thai forum. If you just Google Sylvie and Muay Thai forum, you will totally find it. There are not many of those. If you ask your question there, I will try to answer it over there if I'm able to, because that way other people with the same question can benefit from those answers as well. And it's a community, so if I don't know the answers, or even if I have one experience and someone else has a different experience, you're getting different angles, you're getting different advice, and more people can put their input in that. You can put your input on that, like maybe you have an experience with something, or you know something that you'd like to share, and that would be really cool to let other people know what you know in the Muay Thai community. So check out the forum for sure. And again, thank you to my patrons who have allowed me to do everything that I do. So if you guys watch me on any channel, the Facebook page that you're looking at now, the YouTube channel, I have patron-only content to thank my patrons for their support, but literally everything that I create and everything that I do comes out of the support of my patrons, so thank you guys so much who make that possible, and they make this kind of content possible and free for everyone as well. And Kevin and I are always coming up with new stuff and new ways to do things and interesting projects that we think would be cool for people to know about. So it kind of started with the Muay Thai Library, which is me training with the crews and legends to preserve the Muay of Thailand, because it's changing so fast right now. And a lot of the things that I'm sharing as I'm talking to you guys, some of it is stuff that I've discovered just through my own experience of training in Thailand the way that I do, but it's influenced by and directly informed by what I've learned from the legends and trainers who are in the Muay Thai Library. So if you have time and would like to become a patron, one, to support everything that I do, but also to have access to the Muay Thai Library and learn from these people directly, because maybe you have different eyes, you see different things and you see more of it. I'm actually just like I'm like the moon. I'm a reflection of the sun, but those guys are the sun. Like, those guys are the direct source, and we all need a little bit of like direct sunlight, I think, is really good. So check that out if you guys have time. Totally worth it. There's more than 94 hours of long form training, so you're not going to run out of things to look at in there while we have so much time at home. And then on top of that, because Kevin and I are always coming up with new projects and things that we're trying to do and trying to preserve the legacy of Muay Thai in Thailand, we also have like interviews, documentary type footage, things like that. My favorite that I'm really excited about is interviewing Dieselnoy about his fight against Samart Payakaroon, which was like the fight of the century and was lost for a long time. But now not only are we all able to see that, but we can see what Dieselnoy has to say about it. And there's another one we did with Nam Kabuan fighting Decker. So ask Nam Kabuan what it was like to fight with Decker and actually watch that fight with him is really cool. So those are two that if you guys have time and inclination to do so, I would recommend going and watching those, because they're cool and there's nothing else like them on the internet, so you can experience something that's new. Thank you guys again for joining me. I will see you on Thursday in a brand new month. It will not be March anymore tomorrow or by the time I see you guys. So safe everyone at home, work on stuff, think about stuff, and I don't know, just keep improving. We're not hitting the pause button, we're just in a little side channel right now.